Hi, my name's Anita Daher. I'm a Canadian children's book author. Last week, after so many schools closed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, I began reading from my more recent middle grade and teen novel called Forgetting How to Breathe. I read a chapter a day for 4 days, and then I read from my most recent teen novel, You Don't Have to Die in the End. I haven't read a chapter yet, but I read the acknowledgments. It was just really fun to be able to say thank you to people who helped me with it. So today I thought I'd read from one of my earlier novels from my Junior Canadian Ranger series called, the first in the series is called Racing for Diamonds. And Junior Canadian Rangers are a real organization in Canada. They're in remote and northern communities, and it's a real youth organization, and they're really role models in their community. They're led by Canadian Rangers. And they learn all kinds of skills, but really they help out. They help out in their communities. And I know that JCRs out there, I know that you're doing that now. I know you're helping your elders and helping with groceries and whatever else they might need. So way to go. The more spreading of love and positivity during this difficult time, the better. Such as today, when I was out on my walk, I met a lovely woman named Catherine who was helping a woman who had just had knee surgery, so she was bringing her groceries. Let's just keep sharing and helping each other. Okay, chapter 1 of Racing for Diamonds, and this takes place in the Northwest Territories. For crying out loud, Jazz, would you drop it already? Collie looked like he was about to explode. Jazz could almost see the steam spewing from his ears, and his eyes were shooting lightning bolts. Blue eyes. That was all Jazz had asked him about. After all, Collie had said that his people were Dene. Up until 2 months ago, Jazz had lived her whole life in Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories. In Yellowknife, there were people of many different cultures. Dene, Inuk, East Indian, Scottish, Korean, French, German, and more. But she'd never met a Dene boy with blue eyes before. Why so touchy? She asked, tucking a stray curl from her short red mop behind her ear. She was not at all put off by his anger, even though his shout echoed in the belly of the old warehouse that served as their Junior Canadian Ranger barracks. Well, I don't know, Jazz. Maybe it's because you have my arm wrapped up with my leg and I can't move. Oops, it was true. Collie had become a tangled up mess of green Junior Ranger sweatshirt, white bandage, and purple angry face. Jazz had been with the Junior Canadian Rangers, JCRs for short, for just a month, ever since she turned 12 on January 15 and became old enough to join. But if she was going to be ready for the sled dog derby planned for mid-March, she had to get better at basic first aid. If she didn't get it right, she wouldn't be allowed to go, and she desperately wanted to. Teams from all the JCR patrols from the Northwest Territories would be competing in pairs, and the top 3 teams would get to go to Ottawa for Canada Day. Destiny, Jazz's new home, was a nice enough place, but it wasn't nearly as exciting as Ottawa. True, Destiny wasn't all that far away from Yellowknife, which could be pretty exciting, but there was no road in or out. You could only get to it by bush plane or, in winter, over the ice on Great Slave Lake. Destiny was small, but there was still plenty to do, even if it didn't have city things like internet cafes or an indoor swimming pool. In Destiny, if she wanted to swim, she'd have to go jump in the lake, something she felt like telling Collie to do, and often. Why don't you like me? She asked, rocking back on her sneaker heels. Why are you asking me that? Collie snapped, struggling to free himself from the gauze. Because I want to know. I don't not like you, he said. But man, did anyone ever tell you that you ask a lot of questions? She grinned. As a matter of fact, yes. He took a deep breath and let it out slowly, looking to the ceiling as if for help. Jazz noticed his eyes were a lighter blue than her own, almost like ice. Curious. Are you part albino or something? She asked. Just fix this and wrap me up right. Okay, so maybe Collie didn't not like her, she thought, pulling bits of sticky tape from her fingers, but it was no secret they were about as good together as potatoes with strawberry sauce. This wouldn't be so bad, except that Collie, only 1 year older than Jazz, was a master corporal who outranked her in their Junior Ranger patrol. Jazz hated him bossing her around. Aside from having to put up with Collie, being a JCR rocked. When they were on patrol or helping elders in their community, or even just listening to Sergeant Sugar talk, she didn't miss her friends in Yellowknife quite so much. It was different from a cadet program. JCRs were more relaxed and informal. They even called their commanding officers by their first names, and there wasn't a lot of marching or saluting or saying, "Sir." Sergeant Sugar's real name was Bobby Lemons, but he told everyone to call him Sugar so he wouldn't be such a sourpuss. He was just joking. Sergeant Sugar was about as sour as cotton candy. She was excited about learning the kind of on-the-land survival skills that might save someone's life someday. The Rangers, the adult ones, were called on to help people who got into difficulty in the harsh terrain of the Northwest Territories. She also liked how they were learning traditional skills from the elders, like how to make medicines from plants. During their weekly meetings, Sergeant Sugar talked a lot about respect and healthy lifestyles. Dog mushing through the mountains of the western Northwest Territories would be very healthy. "Is there a problem, Collie?" Jazz looked up from her rat's nest of gauze to see Sergeant Sugar standing over them. His Red Ranger sweatshirt was surrounded by a forest of green as the other junior rangers, all 18 of them, silently gathered around Jazz and Collie. She didn't know why. It's not like they were really bleeding or fighting or anything. Well, not exactly. "No problem, Sergeant Sugar," Collie answered. "How is Jazz doing? Will she be ready for the Derby?" "No problem," he said again. As Sergeant Sugar moved on to check some of the other bandaged pairs, Jazz figured she'd better say thanks. After all, Collie didn't have to stick up for her. Would she have done the same for him? "I know I kinda suck at this," she said, "but I'll be ready, I promise." "Make sure you are," he said, flinging the bandages in a pile and standing up. "And practice on someone else." "Anyone?" she asked the group, grinning. "Come on, 2 raps for the price of 1. Shelby, a JCR who had been with the group for ages, laughed and offered the arm not already bandaged by someone else. "Why do you and Collie always argue?" she asked. Jazz shrugged. "I guess because he's always getting things wrong." It was true that she and Collie were often at odds, which sometimes annoyed the rest of the group, who didn't see the point of whatever they were arguing about, but she didn't not like him either. It was just that, well, she didn't know why they didn't get along. Sometimes people were just like that. Take her mom and dad, for instance. Before their divorce 2 years ago, they argued all the time. They argued so much that most people weren't very surprised when they split up. Since then, Mom and Dad had agreed on almost everything. Mom traveled a lot for her job, so it was decided that Jazz should stay in Yellowknife with Dad and visit her mom as often as it fit into all their schedules. Jazz missed her mom, but she was relieved when the arguing stopped. Life had been almost great. Until last summer, that is. The months between grade 5 and 6 had been spent at her dad's fishing lodge at Hidden Lake, just like the summer before. Last summer, however, she'd had an adventure involving grizzly bears, and she got lost in a network of caves underneath a mountain. Right after that, she and her dad had moved from Yellowknife to Destiny. Everything might have been okay, except that after Jazz's run-in with the grizzly bears, her mom began to worry, and that worry turned into arguments with Dad. Why did they have to argue? She hated it. They argued about everything. Worst of all, it was all her fault. She thought she knew how to fix it, though. If she won the Derby and proved that she had amazing outdoor skills, Mom and Dad would forget the grizzly bears and the arguing would stop. "Earth to Jazz," Shelby was saying. "Welcome back. I think you're finished." With some surprise, she noticed the other girl's arm was properly bandaged. She must have done that when she wasn't paying attention. No sweat. Maybe sometimes when you thought about things too much, you just tied yourself and other people up in knots. She noticed Collie watching her, but was unable to read his expression. Master Corporal or not, he made her want to pop a balloon right behind him when he wasn't expecting it. Instead, she stuck out her tongue. Some things just had to be done. Never mind rank. Okay, that's chapter 1, Racing for Diamonds. I haven't read the full chapter of that in quite some time, so that was really fun for me. By the way, the reference to the grizzly bear adventure that Jazz had. Jazz was actually a character in the second of an earlier series of books. It was just a series of 2. There was Flight from Big Tangle, which was my very first published book from 2002, I think. And then after that, there was another book Flight from Bear Canyon. That's right. I know what my books are called. I remember. And that was set in the Nahanni River Valley region of the Northwest Territories. And in that book, I introduced this new character named Jazz. And I just liked her so much. And that's why I decided to give her her own series and thus the Junior Canadian Ranger series. So thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful day. Stay hopeful. Read a book.